I'm Logan Larson and welcome to Season 1 of the Genre Breakdown Classical and EDM. Let's go. How's it going, everyone? My name is Logan Larson, Dr. Wubz! Today we'll be looking at the Gigue portion of Bach's French Suite No. 5 in G major and Virtual Riot's For Riddim VIP. Everybody knows who Bach is, one of the greatest the game's ever seen. That man was a hit-making machine, okay? Bach lived from 1685 to 1750, which means he was a Baroque composer and slightly towards the beginning of the classical era. Now, for EDM people, you might be like, what's Baroque? What's classical? Isn't it all classical? Well, let me explain. First, we have the medieval period that goes from 1150 to 1400 AD, but there is certainly music from Gregorian chant and stuff that has been notated from before. Then the Renaissance period, which went from 1400 to 1600. Then the Baroque period, which is 1600 to 1750. Then the Classical period from 1750 to 1830. And then the Romantic period from 1830 to the 1920s. And the 20th century goes from the 1920s up until the present. So we're skipping over stuff like this. And this. To get to this. Bach has three major periods of his work: Weimar, Cothen, and Leipzig. In Weimar, he was a part of the ducal court and was an organist and concertmaster. Sorry for butchering this pronunciation, but Cothen is where Prince Leopold hired him as the Kapellmeister, which was a director of music. In his last period in Leipzig, he was hired as a cantor at St. Thomas Church, as well as other churches around the area as a music director. Equally, you might be thinking to yourself, well, what's a gigue? The gigue, or jig, is typically a lively dance that is fugal. Now, what's fugal? Fugal is something, in layman's terms, that might be thought about as a round, but on different pitches. The gigue is typically divided into two sections. Now, what we're looking at is in 12/16, which is not common for a gigue. Ah, a dance, you say? So what you're telling me, just maybe, is that if we slap some drums on this, it might be litty. Don't worry, we're getting there. Something else I should mention is that composition was seen as a trade, something like a blacksmith or a baker during this time period, so they weren't seen as the typical artists that we think of today. Now let's take a listen to the work. EDM people, you might be thinking to yourself, that is the weirdest piano I have ever seen. Now that is a harpsichord and predates the piano. This is what Bach wrote it for. So basically the difference between a piano and a harpsichord is that instead of the hammers hitting the string as a piano would, they're being plucked instead. And no, not those kind of hammers. Okay, my turn. Dr. Wubz! EDM began in the 1980s in Chicago, and the venues were held in abandoned warehouses, but slowly began to rise into underground clubs, but they were still illegal. Early EDM was inspired by disco music, and the two genres that were played were house and techno. From the inception of EDM to 2010, there was a large development of new subgenres and became legal for festivals and rave activity. But in America, the mainstream popularity hit in the early 2010s. The EDM piece we're going to be looking at is Virtual Riot's For Riddim VIP. Now let's talk about the title of the work we're looking at. For Riddim VIP it has a lot to unpack. To start, riddim is a subgenre of EDM that has origins in Jamaican patois music of the same name, riddim, which is the Jamaican pronunciation for the word rhythm. To be clear, what we're going to listen to is not riddim. We are listening to dubstep, which is the parent genre of riddim. So what does this all mean? To understand the subgenres within the subgenres of EDM, I made a small family tree for us to discuss. If you think of EDM as a broad term, it's the great-grandparent and gave birth to drum and bass music. And drum and bass music is like the grandparents, which gave birth to dubstep. And dubstep gave birth to riddim and, in the last year, melodic riddim. Now you might be thinking, what's drum and bass? Drum and bass is exactly what you think it is, drum and bass. So what we have are bass or sub-bass melodies with drums. The drums inside of the drum and bass tracks typically follow the pattern of beat 1 containing a kick and the third beat containing a snare in 4/4 time. The other beats are left open for hi-hats, claps, toms to be filled artistically by the producers. Dubstep, like its parent, drum and bass, has very strong bass and sub-bass melodies. But personally, I kind of think of it, there's more diversity in timbres and pitch ranges as well. Virtual Riot's real name is Valentin Brunn and is a 26-year-old producer from Germany, but I believe currently resides in Los Angeles near the Disciple headquarters. So what I just yelled there, he's signed to Disciple Records, which is one of the leading record labels in dubstep music. The fact that he's only 15 days older than me is crazy though. What's a VIP? VIP stands for Variation in Production, which means it's basically just a remix by the artist. So this can include new sound design, melodies, drums, build, drops, all of it. It's a bag of fun. Now, let us bow our heads and pray. So the organ and choir synths that we hear are clearly inspired by Bach counterpoint, but secondly, I'd like to focus on the repetitive triplet pattern that Virtual Riot smashes in the second drop.
Let's do this again. Want some? Yeah, I dare you.
Sounds kind of similar to the Bach, right? If we break the 12/16 down into 3/4, we can think of these as triplets. They're already grouped in 3. To be clear, this isn't a novel concept in dubstep or in EDM music in general. Plenty of textures, especially in drops, contain repetitive triplet patterns. But with the Bach-inspired beginning, I thought this would be a perfect piece to start with and compare, and this is the first episode, so I wanted something easily digestible, and repetitive triplet patterns definitely fit that. So I made a remix of the Bach piece using Virtual Riot samples from Splice. Splice's sample library and packs are what producers put out of their own sounds to be purchased by other producers. This can include leads, drums, bass, and more. I know no one asked what Bach would sound like as an EDM producer, but I did a thing anyways. What, you thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever? It's in 12/16, give me a break. But you get the point. These two genres aren't so different. And we're going to be looking at different styles, genres, and composers and producers in future episodes. So if you thought to yourself, man, I didn't know Bach could slap like that, then I might recommend a couple of things for you. A couple of pieces I might recommend for you are his Goldberg variations, his B minor mass, his motets for double choir and accompaniment, and his Brandenburg concertos. And if you found yourself headbanging to Virtual Riot, I got some recommendations for you. I'd take a look at the entire Save Yourself EP, I would look at Lost It VIP, I would look at Cry Some More VIP, Dogfight, and Nothing with Mode Step. And just a reminder, anything that I'm talking about in this series, please go get the things that I'm talking about directly from the artist. Make sure that we're paying the artist, they're making so many good things, whether they be composers, producers, or whatever I'm talking about, please go directly to that site to get it. And just so composers, producers, and creators know, I'm using the copyright law under education to discuss this, so I'm trying to help you guys get money as well and spread a message because this is truly at its core an educational program. Please comment below about what composers and producers you guys would like me to talk about in future episodes. I really want this to be a community of learning and inclusion, so as we educate ourselves together at #EducationStation, I want to be able to talk about these things in the comments with you guys, and we're coming from people from way different sides of life in terms of what they're listening to music, so please be kind to each other in the comments. Also, please share this video. The goal is to open up both of these genres to more people who are not currently listening to them and build a bridge between classical and EDM music so sharing it among multiple communities will help that goal. If you like this and want to hear about some of the other things that I'm working on, go ahead and follow my Instagram and Facebook. I'll see you all in the next episode of the Genre Breakdown, Classical and EDM.